Most American gardeners treat August like the beginning of the end. The summer annuals are burning out. The spring perennials finished months ago. The garden is starting to look tired, and there is a quiet assumption that nothing significant is going to happen until next May. That assumption costs gardeners 7 months of bloom they could have had from the same beds they are already maintaining. Here is what the gardeners whose yards look spectacular from September through March understand that most people do not. A garden that only performs from May through July is a garden planted for 3 months of the year. A garden planted correctly in August runs from late summer all the way through winter and into early spring, not because of one unusually long blooming plant, but because of 7 specific perennials with overlapping bloom periods that hand the display from one to the next, like relay runners passing a baton. Today, I am giving you all 7, each one with its USDA zone range, its exact bloom window, and the specific planting detail that determines whether it establishes correctly before winter or struggles through its first cold season without the root system it needs. Plant these 7 in August, and your garden does not stop. It transitions. Drop your US state or USDA zone in the comments right now. This list applies differently depending on where you are in the country, and I want to make sure every recommendation today actually fits your specific growing conditions. I read every single one. Let's go. Plant 1, New England Aster, hard hue USDA, zones 3 through 9, blooms August through October. The first handoff in this relay happens right now in August, which is exactly why this plant leads the list. New England Aster begins blooming as the summer garden is declining and carries vivid color through October in most American zones. Purple, violet, pink, and occasionally white daisy-shaped flowers over upright stems that can reach 3 to 4 feet in mature, established clumps. This is a native plant. It evolved in American meadows and prairies across the eastern United States. That origin matters because it means this plant is not being asked to perform in conditions foreign to its biology. It is performing in conditions it developed in. The pollinators, monarchs, painted ladies, bumblebees, that work New England Aster in September and October are responding to a plant their ancestors have been working for thousands of years. Plant in August, while nursery specimens are available. Many will already have developing flower buds. Do not disturb the root ball excessively during planting. Water consistently through establishment, full sun, and reasonably moist, well-draining soil. Taller varieties need staking or placement toward the back of the border, where neighboring plants can provide support. Zone note. In zones 3 and 4, get this in the ground as early in August as possible. You want 4 to 6 weeks of root development before the ground freezes. In zones 7 through 9, the establishment window is generous and the bloom period extends later into fall than in cold zones. Tell me in the comments right now, do you currently grow New England Aster in your garden? Drop your state and tell me what variety. I read every single one. Plant 2, autumn. Joy stonecrop, sedum, hardy. USDA, zones 3 through 10. Blooms late summer through fall. The widest hardiness range on this entire list. Zone 3, Minnesota through Zone 10, South Florida. Autumn. Joy stonecrop is one of the most adaptable, full-sun perennials available to American gardeners and one of the most underused as a late-season performer. The bloom progression on this plant is one of the most visually interesting in the perennial world. Flower clusters emerge as pale pink buds in late summer. They deepen to rich pink at peak bloom in September and October. They transition through dusty rose to copper bronze as temperatures drop, and the dried seed heads that remain after flowering ends stand through winter, providing architectural structure and feeding birds through the coldest months. You are not buying one season of performance from autumn joy. You are buying late summer color, fall color, winter structure, and bird habitat from one plant that asks almost nothing beyond full sun and well-draining soil. Critical planting note that most content skips. Do not amend the soil richly before planting autumn joy. Do not add heavy compost or nitrogen fertilizer. Rich, moist, amended soil produces the one failure mode this plant has. Soft, weak stems that flop open and fall apart rather than holding the tight, upright, mounded form that makes this plant so architectural. Lean, well-draining soil produces strong stems and better color. Plant in the worst draining area of your border at your own risk. Plant in full sun lean ground and step back. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now. This channel releases zone-specific perennial knowledge every single week that changes how your garden performs from season to season. Free. 2 seconds. Do it now. Plant 3. Hardy Garden Chrysanthemum. Hardy USDA. Zones 4 through 9 depending on cultivar. Blooms September through November. Here is the most important word on every chrysanthemum label you will ever read. Hardy. That single word determines whether the mum you are buying is a perennial that will return every spring for years, or a temporary fall decoration that dies with the first hard freeze and needs replacing next season. The chrysanthemums sold in garden centers across America in September and October in decorative containers, the ones stacked near the entrance that look spectacular for 3 weeks, are almost universally not selected for cold hardiness. They are selected for flower size, color range, and shelf appeal. When fall is over, they go in the trash. Every year. Permanent, ongoing expense for a plant that looks like a perennial but performs like a very expensive annual. Hardy garden mums, the rubellum group varieties in particular, are genuinely perennial in zones 4 through 8. They bloom September through November. With the dense mounded flower display most gardeners associate with chrysanthemums, and then return the following spring from established root systems that have been building through the winter. Plant 1 in August, and give it the root establishment time it needs before cold arrives. In year 2, the root system is larger. The clump is bigger. The flower display is more substantial. That is how perennials work. They improve. Temporary fall mums do not improve because they are not there in year 2. August planting is meaningfully better than September or October, planting for hardy mums in zones 4 through 6. Root establishment time before freeze-up determines whether a newly planted mum survives its first winter or heaves out of the ground when the soil thaws and freezes repeatedly in early spring. 6 weeks of root establishment before freeze-up. August gives you that. Late September does not. Full sun, good drainage, consistent moisture through establishment. That is the complete requirement list. Hit the like button right now. Every like puts this information in front of another American gardener who has been buying temporary fall mums every single year when a hardy variety planted once in August would be returning and expanding for free every season after. 1 tap. Plant 4. Hardy cyclamen. Hardy USDA zones 5 through 9. Blooms September through October. This is the plant most American gardeners have never considered for outdoor planting because they know cyclamen only as an indoor winter houseplant. The florist cyclamen sold in pots from November through February, the one with the large showy flowers that dies the moment temperatures drop, is a completely different plant from hardy cyclamen hederifolium. Same genus. Completely different cold tolerance. Completely different garden role. Hardy cyclamen produces delicate pink or white flowers in early fall, September and October, before the foliage emerges. Then the foliage arrives after the flowers, and it is extraordinary. Silver marbled, patterned leaves in intricate designs that are more interesting than most plants grown specifically for foliage. Those leaves hold through winter, providing visual interest in the period between the fall flowers and the late winter bloomers coming at the end of this list. Plant in partial shade, under deciduous trees where it gets dappled summer light and winter sun as the tree canopy opens. Humus-rich, well-draining soil. It dislikes standing water, especially during its dormant summer period. In zones 5 and 6, plant the tubers in August, while soil is warm to encourage establishment before fall bloom. In zones 7 through 9, the planting window is more forgiving. The visual combination of hardy cyclamen flowers in September with New England aster and autumn joy stonecrop blooming simultaneously in the same garden is one of the most sophisticated fall displays available to American perennial gardeners. Plant 5. Sasanqua camellia. Hardy USDA zones 7 through 9. Blooms late fall through winter. This plant is exclusively for gardeners in the southern tier of the United States, the Southeast, the Gulf Coast, the Pacific Coast, and the transitional zones of the Mid-Atlantic. If you are in Zone 6 or colder, this is not your plant. Skip to Plant 6. For those of you in Zones 7 through 9, Sasanqua camellia is the bridge between your fall perennials and your late winter bloomers. While the rest of the country has bare borders and frozen ground, your camellia is producing white, pink, or red flowers on an evergreen shrub that looks intentional and structured through every month of winter. The camellia family has a reputation for being fussy and difficult. Sasanqua specifically is the most adaptable and most cold-tolerant species in the genus. Well-draining, slightly acidic soil, protection from the worst afternoon heat during establishment, and consistent moisture through the first season. After that, it is one of the lowest maintenance winter flowering plants available in its zone range. A note on August planting for Sasanqua in the Deep South. August is not the ideal planting time in Zones 8 and 9 where summer heat is extreme. Use August to select and prepare the planting site. Plant when temperatures moderate in October and November. The plant will establish through the mild southern winter and be ready for its first bloom cycle the following late fall. Plant 6. Winter heath. Hardy USDA Zones 5 through 7. Blooms January through March. Here is the plant that most surprises American gardeners when they see it for the first time in February. A low-growing evergreen shrub covered in tiny bell-shaped flowers. In January. Under snow in some zones. At the time of year when most American gardens have been empty for 3 to 4 months. Winter heath Erica carnea, specifically the springwood pink cultivar, is hardy in Zones 5 through 7, and blooms from January through March. That bloom window is the most valuable on this entire list, not because the flowers are the most spectacular, but because of when they arrive. January and February bloom in Zones 5 through 7 is not common. It is rare, and a garden that has color when every other garden on the street is gray and bare stops visitors in their tracks. Full sun or light afternoon shade. Sharply drained soil. Winter heath hates waterlogged winter ground more than almost anything else you could do to it. Slightly acidic conditions preferred, though some cultivars tolerate a wider pH range. Not suitable for Zones 8 and above where summer heat is too intense for this cool climate native. Plant in August while the ground is workable and warm. Winter heath needs to establish its root system through fall before the January bloom cycle begins. A plant installed in October in Zone 5 has almost no establishment window before the ground freezes. Subscribe right now if you have not already. Hit the bell. Every week, this channel covers the specific plants and timing decisions that make American gardens perform year-round instead of for 3 months of spring and summer. Plant 7. Christmas Rose Hellebore. Hardy USDA, Zones 3 through 8. Blooms winter through early spring depending on zone. This is the final handoff in the relay. The plant that closes the gap between the winter garden and the spring garden. And in Zones 3 through 8, it is one of the most valuable perennials available to American gardeners for exactly that reason. Helleborus niger produces white bowl-shaped flowers that emerge in winter in mild zones and late winter to very early spring in cold ones. In Zones 7 and 8, you may see flowers in December and January. In Zone 5, those same flowers arrive in February and March, emerging from snow-covered ground, while everything else in the garden is still dormant. In Zones 3 and 4, flowering arrives in March as the snow melts, with the flowers sometimes pushing through the last of the winter's snowpack. What makes hellebore the ideal anchor plant for the end of this list is that its bloom window connects directly to early spring bulbs and the first perennials breaking dormancy in March and April. The relay that started with New England Aster in August runs through 9 months of overlapping bloom periods and lands in early spring exactly when the rest of the perennial garden is waking up. The display never fully stops. Partial to full shade. Organically enriched, well-draining soil. Protection from harsh winter winds. Placement beneath deciduous trees or on the north side of a structure provides the sheltered microclimate hellebores perform best in. Evergreen foliage that holds through winter, providing structure even in the months before bloom. One critical handling note. Hellebores contain toxic compounds that can irritate skin on contact. Wear gloves when planting, dividing, or handling any part of the plant. Keep plant material away from children and pets. Here is the complete zone-by-zone planting guide before you go. Zones 3 and 4, New England Aster, Autumn Joy Stone Crop, Hardy Chrysanthemum, and Christmas Rose Hellebore. Get everything in the ground as early in August as possible for maximum root establishment before freeze-up. Outdoor flowering pauses after hard freezes and resumes with hellebores in late winter. Zones 5 and 6, everything above, plus hardy cyclamen for shaded areas, and winter heath for January through March color. The strongest overall selection from this entire list. Your garden runs from August all the way through March, with something always in bloom, or an ornamental structure. Zones 7 through 9 combine asters, stone crop, and chrysanthemums with hardy cyclamen, Sasanqua camellia, and hellebores. Camellias provide the winter bridge that cold zone gardeners cannot access. Nearly continuous color from August through March is achievable in this zone range with these 7 plants working together. Plant during cool morning or evening hours in August. Water the root ball thoroughly immediately after planting. 2 to 3 inches of organic mulch across the root zone, away from the crown. Consistent moisture through establishment even for drought-tolerant varieties. The mature plant's drought tolerance is irrelevant to a newly planted specimen in August heat. 7 perennials. 9 months of overlapping bloom. 1 August planting session. Your garden does not have to stop in October. It just has to be planted with plants that know how to keep going. Subscribe right now if you have not already. Hit the bell and drop 2 things in the comments before you go. What state or zone you are gardening in, and which of these 7 plants you are planting this August. I read every single comment. Your answers shape the next video directly. Now go extend your season pass where everyone else stopped.